Oh, we still miss the Miiverse though in new forms of Nintendo Wii U, and especially noticeable with Nintendo 3DS as well. But even now, that's besides the point though, because hey, at least we can still able to actually experience online services in new forms of this particular console. So, hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm from the likes of the Maxi Toys videos, and after decided to take a break of the forms of Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed Let's Play for quite a long time now, and even then we're still able to actually come back to this not until when we get to September eventually. So I've decided that today was actually forms of 1st of July, so that means we're actually on the halfway point of 2018. So even then which game should we able to tackle, I wonder? Well, do you remember back in during the likes of the very beginning of 2018 that recently Mario has recently finished up with the forms of NES Remakes 1? Well, I've decided to able to actually go ahead and tackle through the sequel of NES Remakes, and that is the forms of NES Remakes 2. So, I believe this particular installment of NES Remakes came out in the forms of, I'm assuming this came out in 2014, and I'm considering this actually being first released in April in 2014, because we've got NES Remakes 1 in the forms of December 2013, so even though there's about time we can now finally jump into the sequel of NES Remakes. So, yeah, let's see how it goes, eh? The NES Remake series lets you experience NES games in your whole new way. So even though that, yeah. So yeah, I should probably mention about this is that this game now finally introduces multiple controller options, but in forms of you still use your Wii U gamepad, and especially noticeable you can now finally use your Wii remote. Let's see right here. Yeah, I'm also able to actually just use use this feature, but still, that much like the ones in the first NES remakes, the Miiverse functionality won't be able to be usable now. So even though I'll explain more on that later once we're able to actually get into NES Remakes 2. So even though that yeah. So as you can see right there, this time around though, we actually got ourselves not only the actual main game, but also 2 other modes as well, which we have Super Luigi Brothers and Championship mode. Because the reason why the fact that Super Luigi Brothers exists in this particular game is because, well, this game is usually be the continuation of the forms of the Year of Luigi type of syndrome, because the first one they've ever done is the forms of obviously Luigi's Mansion 2, and then also New Super Luigi U for the DLC of New Super Mario Bros. U, and Mario Luigi Dream Team Brothers, but in forms of this plot story based, and especially noticeable by the forms of Dr. Luigi, and all the other kinds of jazz here and there. So even yeah. So let's get started right there, but in forms of well, just the actual NES Remix 2. And structurally, the actual structure of the forms of NES Remix 2 is very similar to NES Remix 1. We normally start things off by the forms of the very first stage, and it usually takes place in Remix 1 stages. So even though, take this stage for example, we're actually going to be playing through Super Mario Bros. 3. And the entire objective right there is that basically we need to defeat 10 enemies before time runs out, and yeah, just hold the X or B button to be able to actually perform a dash ability, which even then, that yeah. As far as you probably already know, is that the presentation has been slightly upgraded significantly, but as you can clearly hear on the actual music selection, basically the entire Starman theme, Invincibility theme, has been slightly remixed for quite a bit, which even then, I give this game a lot more praise for that particular point of view. So once again, much like the first game, is the fact that after when you're completely done with the first stage in Remakes 1 stages, we're actually going to be finally experienced by the forms of I would say, of all the NES Remakes games I've actually played so far, this will have to be the best selection of the forms of NES Remakes 2's selection of games. And as you can see right there, much like the ones in the first game, that stamps are returning, and even then though that's besides the point here. So even though the first stamp we've actually unlocked, I believe this is actually based off Punch-Outs, but in forms of Little Mac. But anyways though, so we've actually unlocked Super Mario Bros. 3, which is the game that we've recently played through, and especially noticeable we've got Dr. Mario, sorry for a little bit of a tongue twisting at the end folks, and also we've got Super Mario Bros. 2, aka Super Mario USA for those of you who lived in Japan, and we've got Kirby's Adventure, and Wario's Woods. So yeah, it's a very cool lineup by the forms of, well, the 3 that I was mostly familiar with, excluding number 4 by the forms of Dr. Mario, but that's besides the point. However though, the structurally wise by the forms of this particular Let's Play as far as this particular system goes, I'm actually going to be doing something slightly different for a change, because even though, well, the first game we're going to be jumping into by the forms of NES Remix 2 set of challenges is the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3, but in the next video after this is the fact that I'm actually going to be doing something completely different, because normally I would try to go through every single games one by one, but it turns out I'm actually decided to go ahead and deal with the platforming syndrome first, and then we can able to jump into puzzle games and etc, etc, but in forms of the best to the very best, and eventually that's when we get to the latest portion that we can able to actually get into Dr. Mario and Warriors Woods, because both of those games are puzzle based. So yeah, let's get started by the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3 right here. So here's the first stage of this particular challenges. So hold X or B to touch the shell to pick it up. And the second section is to actually hit the block with the shell and collect that particular Super Leaf power-up by the forms of Raccoon Mario, seems like it. And, you know, unlike the ones in the first NES Remix game, that normally before you start the game off, it shows you some of the video footage speak for itself, by the forms of it shows you how to play the game and etc. I don't think it's noticeable in this game this time around though, because you start things off immediately, but if you're trying to able to actually pick through 3 different stages, which even then though, that's something is worth mentioning for this throughout. So even then though, each and every single NES Remix game, the only exception being by the forms of the remake set of stages, and here's Pit from Kid Icarus. So here we are to the second stage right there. This one is the forms of defeats 3 Goombas before the time runs out, obviously for this little factor. And just like the ones in NES Remix 1 Let's Play, that normally Mario did recently finish that, this is the 100% completion playthrough, by the forms of, as you expected, the exact same system as how the fact that in the first game is the fact that this game actually introduces the ranking system, much like the ones in NES Remix 1. You do have 1 star, 2 stars, 3 stars, and even most recently, Rainbow Stars that I've achieved. So, once again, in order to actually get Rainbow Stars in the forms of this particular game itself, is the fact that you have to be perfect in everything. So, here's Link from Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link here, because he looks incredibly different than the ones in, you know, the bite-sized version of Link from the forms of the original Legend of Zelda. So, hit the P-switch and collect 10 coins, so self-explanatory right there. So, obviously, that we've already know what Super Mario Bros. 3 is, and I'm sure enough I died right there. That was a bad start right there. So, anyway, you know, we've already, actually, let's go ahead and restart this, because I accidentally managed to get ourselves this really, really slow start. So, anyways though, as far as from my experience of the forms of, although much like the ones in the first NES Remix game, I'm actually going to be discussing upon how the fact that was my first experience of every single NES games has to offer. But even though, let's talk about the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3. You know exactly how this game plays out to be, because if you're following through, Mario and Luigi did manage to play through a bit of Super Mario All-Stars in the forms of Super Nintendo/NES back in during the likes of last year. So even though you know exactly how this game plays out, and even though this game first released in the forms of, I would say, 1988 according to the actual copyright Nintendo claim, or especially noticeable by the forms of, I would say, 1990 from everywhere else, or even 1991 from our countries, I'm presuming that much, but even then, that's as far as I can really say about this here. 4th level is that the fact that we need to collect 168 coins in this rare treasure ship, which even then though, because of how the fact that, well, ironically I know, is the fact that Mario or Luigi is not able to actually experience this particular rare treasure ship in the forms of the actual main playthrough of Super Mario Bros. 3, even for the Super Mario All-Stars version, because even then, we would normally originally try to do this on the NES though, but the game plays pretty much exactly the same between both the NES and the Super Nintendo version, because although there are some slight differences by the forms of, you know, updated visuals and all that stuff between, you know, both the NES and the Super Nintendo, so, or in this case, Nintendo Entertainment System, if you like to say this precisely. But anyways though, we've got ourselves once again Rainbow Stars on that specific stage. I go assuming that I might actually try to go ahead and say now. We might actually gonna get ourselves a rainbow stars in every single stages in Super Mario Bros. 3, if that's possible. But anyways, we got ourselves the next stamp right there, which is actually based off from Metroid. Yes, I say Metroid is because, well, Samus Aran was actually in one of these stamps. So, stage number 5 is basically we need to use the Goomba shoe, most likely for this particular stage. So, yeah, much like the ones in the first NES Remakes game, in certain stages, but in forms of certain challenges, it's the fact that you're actually going to be broken off into so many sections, but in forms of, like, this stage, for instance, that it takes you, like, 3 different segments, and then much like before, you do have yourselves a, your health meter, and if you run out of health, or in this case, if you run out of hearts, then you have to, accept the game over screen, and it's basically noticeable that once again you get yourselves 3 additional points to your stamp points, which even then though that stamp points, you know, it makes a return ever since the first NES Remakes game, and we've got ourselves a Wario stamp. I think that's actually based off from Wario's words, so yeah, that's how it goes, but in forms of this particular visual cue or something like that. Stage 6. And I believe this particular stage is going to takes place in the forms of the tower segments, even though because, well, you know, we're actually going to be breezing through World 1's tower, and especially noticeable by the forms of pretty much the later stages, and I almost got died by the forms of that dry bones there, but hey, at least we managed to survive for that, no problem. But anyway, hold X or B to dash for the exit, so even then, we pretty much got it. We got this together! I don't know why I truly say that, but hey. Alright, so we have to do the same thing, except dodging those spikes there, unless if you actually do it as a fast strategy, like I just did right there, and we can able to make that just in no problem, so. And the final part is basically we need to defeat Boom Boom in the forms of takes place in World 1, because it's a very simple, straightforward boss, and I mean, he's pathetically easy though, if you manage to do this pattern correctly, like I just did right there. Especially noticeable if you ever played, you know, New Super Mario Bros. U before, or even especially noticeable by the forms of New Super Luigi U, and even recently Super Mario Run. Well, despite the fact that in Super Mario Run, Mario or the gang did manage to run automatically, and then able to actually just do this non-stop. And this is Mario right there, just managed to got himself his, game over animation, or in this case especially noticeable with his losing his life animation, stuff like that. So anyways, stage number 7 is to able to actually enter the pipe at the top. So you can now know that obviously this is actually based off World 4. I could assume this actually takes place in a tower level, I'm presuming, because if you manage to actually access to a secret area in the forms of World 4 tower, but I don't know which one of the those 2 towers were at, but even then though, that's just how I think it is. So yeah, this entire objective is very simple. We need to hop onto this particular platforms right there, and if you're trying to jump off the platform toward one another, sometimes it shifts between left, right, or up. So even though if you manage to do that very, very well, like I just did right there, especially noticeable that I've recently managed to get back into Mario Party Advance, but in forms of that one minigame called Which Way minigame, that it does the exact same concept as far as this particular challenge itself. And we got ourselves a heart stamp. I'm assuming this is actually more likely based off from the Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link, sorry. I kept on thinking about the first game for some reason, but anyway. Stage number 8 is the fact that we need to collect 60 coins before the time runs out, and it's important to know we need to actually activate the P switch there, and oh, I have no idea what I'm just doing right there. I'm assuming I did not make it. Nope, I didn't make it, so oh well, let's try again. But even then though, luckily though, the entire objective wasn't that too hard, or even especially not too long, or not too shabby. It's just how the fact that I just did not know the rest of the other coins were the other side. So even though, thankfully though, we've managed to got 60 of those coins there. And the last segment on this particular challenge is to, well, to return the magic wand as Frog Mario. So, that's pretty obvious, and even then, though, that makes it pretty cool nonetheless. So, there we go, we've managed to accomplish this particular stage. So, you know, you get the idea. So yeah, as I mentioned to you before, that today was actually forms of the 1st of July already. So that means summer is still continuing, especially noticeable that I was really hoping that the weather should be twice as awesome as it used to be, but even then though, I can't wait until I'm able to get myself my summer term break, until when we get to, well, August. Well, I don't exactly take a break just yet though, because we got ourselves the upcoming marathon and during the next month actually, because even then though that's, you know, based off from the Blue Bomber, but in forms of, well, Mega Man, because, well, I'll tell you that more on that later. But anyways, because that's the B stamp, which I don't know why we actually got that from earlier points this time around though, compared to the ones in the first NES remakes, or in this case remakes. Basically we get the actual B badge stamp from the very end of the actual portion of it. So anyways though, so the 9th stage challenge is the fact that we need to defeat 15 enemies as Fire Mario. So this usually takes place in level 6 in Giant Lands, because I say that because, you know, one of the main gimmicks on that world is the fact that everything else is huge, and especially noticeable with stupid Koopa Troopa. Jeez, I keep on running into this guy so easily. In fact, it's been a long while since I actually managed to come back into Super Mario Bros. 3 and son of a... I need to get a lot of practice on this game, kind of thinking about it though, because I think last time we actually did play it is actually forms of an Super Mario All-Stars Let's Play, which I think that was actually last time we actually did manage to play this game for quite some time and what have you, which even then, that might be sounds a little bit illogical for some of you, but even then though, yeah. Okay, so let's go ahead and just, you gotta be kidding me. I've wasted a little bit more time there, but hey, at least we can able to actually just get rid of the majority of the enemies themselves until we're able to... Oh, I could potentially try to deal with that enemy from down there, but I don't know if I can get the rainbow on that one. Nope. Oh well, maybe whenever I decide to do the previous 2 stages to get rainbow stars from, then I should be fine when it comes to this particular episode alone, because when we get to the later stages, specifically stage number 10 and onwards, I should be pretty much comfortable with this. So even then though, that this is the, well, I could assume I might as well able to say this right, is the fact that I might actually go ahead and say now, I might as well able to actually achieve, the first rainbow, outline or the banana. Ah, shoot! I was off by 1 coin! Jeez, it's like Mario Party all over again? Jeez. Anyways though, so in this particular stage, stage 10 is the fact that we need to collect coins. So, at least in the first section we need to collect 6, and then the second one we have to collect 12, and then the third one, as you can see right there, we have to melt out the ice blocks, and then we could able to collect 20 coins. And then the final one is the fact that we need to collect 15 coins, and then basically activate the P-switch until you get the last 2, and booyah, the stage is done. Piece of cake. Too easy. Too easy for me, I should probably say that much until now. So anyways though, 33 stars, so it's not too bad, not too shabby either. So yeah, I should probably mention about this actually, is the fact that, but first before I get into anything else, Stage 11 is basically based off, well, Airship Fortress segments, because even then, the first section we need to do is basically we need to get the item from the question mark block, so it's very self-explanatory, but again, as far as where Mario or Luigi mentioned about this and during the actual Super Mario Bros. 3 Let's Play back in Super Mario All-Stars playthrough in last year, they've already mentioned how the fact that how deadly the airship levels can be, because, well, the stages themselves are constantly scrolling throughout the entirety of the airship levels, so if you fudged up at the very end, then you have to do the entire level over and over again, which even I know it drives you insane. But anyways though, so here we are at the Enter the Pipe segment, which even though apparently we're actually on World 7's Airship Fortress, so this might be really tough. So even though I might as well able to actually just accept this fact. Ah, I did not make it. I was really hoping I can reach that, but nope, I didn't, so. Oh well, whatever. And good thing too is the fact that if you manage to accidentally get the, if you accidentally died on those specific challenges like this, basically, much like the ones in the first game, it doesn't carry your time over, thank goodness for that, unlike the ones in Sonic Unleashed, or especially noticeable the most recent Sonic games nowadays. But even though that's as far as I can really tell for that point, but at least it's really good that how the fact that Nintendo decides to able to not add in that time over, which even then or continues your time over every time you get, you know, some trial error moments, especially noticeable by the forms of losing too many hearts and all that stuff, which... Sure, I'm okay with it. Ah, shoot. Ah, damn it. I was supposed to able to actually jump at the right time, but I think this section might be really long though, because of how the fact that, you know, the screen is constantly scrolling the entire time, and as a result, it can give me some a lot of trial and error moments here, especially noticeable by the forms of these segments, for instance. But like, at least we can able to actually keep our health alive by the forms of you know, just one heart left. And then if I accidentally died on that specific point, actually, I'm also able to say this right now, is the fact that what's the new thing about this game actually introduces with, but in forms of a new ranking type, but in forms of well, you know how the fact that we've constantly gained ourselves too many points at the very beginning of the game? Well, that's what the rainbow text comes into play. Every time you actually achieve the rainbow stars, specifically the 3 rainbow stars, like I'll show you when I finish this particular stage. So anyways, defeat Larry Cooper. But in forms of, you know, in World 1 boss, so... Oh, Christ. Oh, there we go. So yeah, if you manage to see what's going on screen, the fact of the matter is, let's see if I can get my rainbow on that one. Yep, I'm sure enough, I still do. So I'm pretty much dominated by the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3, because yes, as you can see right there, it gives you 200 points if you manage to achieve a rainbow rating. So even though that could be very good if you manage to able to actually keep on going after by the forms of these badge points and all that stuff, or these badge, or in this case the stamp points. So even though I highly recommend you do that if you manage to able to actually become missing something. So anyways, now we move on to this next mission right there. Just collect 5 coins in the forms of World 5 level, and that's all you really have to do there. So it's very straightforward. But again, you have to get used to with the buzzy beetles on that particular level though, on the other hand. So yeah, because that was a Raccoon Mario stamp, so that's pretty awesome. And now let's move on to stage number 13. And this one we need to use the Starman in order to actually go across the level. So I should probably be familiar with this level actually, because this takes place in World 7. So constantly going after every single Starman, because if you do that, then you would able to actually continue on with the actual the level itself. But again, if you manage to get too slow on that particular point's notice, well, you still got some time left until you're able to actually just go ahead and... No! Don't you dare run away from me! Sometimes it just gets pretty nerve-wracking sometimes, I have to admit though right away with this game sometimes, because specifically Super Mushrooms or Starman most likely, well except Fireflower, because Fireflower usually just stays put. But on the other hand though, Mushrooms or the Starmans if you will, doesn't usually just goes whatever they wanted to, they always goes randomized if you manage to able to actually, if they may actually go onto that specific direction when you're looking, but they're going in the opposite direction compared to where you're looking. So that's a little bit stingy right there, I will admit though right away. But anyways, stage number 14 is the fact that we go ahead and just explore the tank level of any sorts to be able to defeat a Rocky Wrench. So this might be very tough though, because, you know, this takes place in World 8, because, you know, World 8 is considerably a little bit more difficult. Well, I would say though is that, the difficulty in Super Mario Bros. 3 can go a little bit more zigzaggy when it comes to all over the place when it comes to difficulty, but in forms of, you know, World 3 is actually a lot harder than World 4, and World 6 is just twice as challenging to the ones in World 8. So feels like a zigzag when it comes to difficulty settings and all that stuff. Well, not exactly difficulty settings, but it's just how the difficulty works when it comes to the level's progression and kinds of stuff. So even though that's as far as I can say about this here. So, stupid cannonball. Oh, Jesus Christ. But at least we can still able to actually survive for this. So, oh my god, oh my lord, what's up with that lag? I think it's the main reason why that this stage is constantly lagging is because there's too much things on screen, but in forms of, let's just say those little Baba enemies and all that stuff. I think that's the prime example of that. So, does that really try to hurt me? I'm supposed to able to jump on that. Thanks a lot. Hey, what's going on with me today? Okay, at least we got that. Oh, Jesus, that lag. Well, it's a good thing that the lag did slow down the timer though, as you can clearly see on screen right there, but even though that, it does attempt to bother me sometimes by the forms of certain delays of my jumps, or even especially noticeable for everything else for this resistible, but even then, it's not too bad though for the most part though. It's just how the fact that you need to get used to with how the fact that, you know how the fact that I did die by the forms of that cannonball for about twice, by the way. I was almost nearly towards the end of that specific section right there. And the last part is the fact that we need to defeat the Burrowing Bro, and that's how you do here. So, There we go then. Thankfully, I don't have to do it this stage again because after all, I've managed to achieve the 3 rainbow stars after all. And we've got ourselves our super mushroom stamp. So there you go then. Excuse me, I got something on my throat there, so I must apologize for that. And yeah, we're pretty much almost nearly towards the end of Super Mario Bros. 3 actually. To actually go ahead and explore stage 15 is by the fact that we need to defeat certain Boom Booms, and that's all you really have to do here. So, in fact, we've only got about 2 more stages left, actually, in the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3, and then we move on to the next. So, that's pretty quick and pretty fast at the same time, well, despite some trial and error moments like this, for instance. But even then, I can still manage to get this covered, so even then, let's see if I can... I'm gonna have to start playing like an idiot or something like that because, well, I keep on getting hit by the Boom Boom at the very early points because I don't think you can able to do that though, unlike in the ones in, you know, both New Super Mario Bros. U, New Super Luigi U, or Super Mario Run even. But that's just how I think it is when it comes to different comparisons for its sake. So anyways, you know, there's not much else I can really talk through NES Remix 2. It plays exactly like the ones in NES Remix 1, except I feel like that the selection of games they now added in this time around, though, is a lot better to me compared to the ones in the first game is handled, because there are some pretty good ones, but in forms of Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, Donkey Kong Jr., and mainly Pinball for a small extent, and also but in forms of, I would say, balloon fights for a little bit, but there are some other half of games that I wasn't exactly comfortable with, but in forms of Cuckoo Land, or even especially Golf because of the lack of depth, or even especially noticeable, it's really hard to tell the judge of distances, and even especially noticeable but in forms of the Ice Climber, aka, well, I had to be really harsh on that particular game again, because even then, Mario already established that dozens or so times whenever he got into that point in Ice Climber, that he found the physics, especially the jumping momentum on that game, is significantly awful. I'm gonna tell you that right about now. So anyways though, let's go ahead and just restart right there because I literally waste my time to get the rainbow stars on that mission. And speaking of which, here we have the final stage in the forms of Super Mario Bros. 3 set of stages, or even challenges as a result, is to be able to defeat Bowser as Frog Mario. So if you're probably following for this particular Let's Play of Super Mario Bros. 3, if you in order to actually defeat Bowser is the fact that we need to actually let him smash for the ground twice for this point here, and then there you go. That's how you deal with the final boss in Super Mario Bros. 3. So, everything else is self-explanatory right there, so even then know that, oh yeah, I should probably mention about this actually, Super Mario Bros. 3 actually retains 16 stages. It always has the exact same amount of stages compared to the ones in The Legend of Zelda, but not by much, by any means. But even then, no, that's, yeah, there you go. We got ourselves Rainbow Stars on the forms of the very last level in Super Mario Bros. 3. And we've actually unlocked the next NES game that we've got, and that's the forms of Punch-Out. And we got ourselves our coin stamp right there, which is actually based off from Super Mario Bros. 3, of course. So because of that sprite work. So anyways, for Punch-Out, it only has like 7 stages on that one, so hopefully it should be able to get that game done. But honestly, I'm probably not going to get into Punch-Out for this just yet though, because even then, I might actually decide to go ahead and go back into both Stage 3 and especially Stage 9 to get the Rainbow Stars on those 2 stages. And for the most part though, we'll pretty much be fully completely done with Super Mario Bros. 3 after all. So even then though, let's get started by the forms of the Rainbow Stars in Stage number 3, because this mission wasn't nearly as long as all the other ones until we get to the future points. So even then, there goes that. And I'll do a jump cut by the forms of, you know, stage number 9, because I have no idea how to get the Rainbow Stars on that specific level. But hey, at least we can still cope with this to able to keep on trying though. So anyways, let's go ahead and do this last part for a better attempt this time. And, there we go, that should be good to go right there. You probably noticed on that coin as I was standing on, is the fact that that contains a power-up. So even then, I suggest you drop from here, and there we go. Alright, so that concludes stage number 3, but it forms of the Rainbow Stars run through. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I'll meet you guys back by the forms of stage number 9, by the forms of the, you know, the Rainbow Stars department. So yeah, I'll meet you guys. Alright, so this might be a, I know it sounds illogical for some of you, but this might actually be my 5th attempt for doing this, because even then, by the first 4 attempts well, let's just say my controls, especially with my platforming skills in this particular challenge right there, it can be pretty tricky sometimes, because if you manage to lose your Fire Mario, much like the ones in the one of those challenges in NES Remix 1, in the forms of the bonus stages, if you will, in Super Mario Bros., that if you accidentally lose your fire power-up, then you're pretty much going to be able to be grounded, as far as I'm aware for that, so... Okay, there we go, and just only one more enemy left, and just let the visible block to appear, and boom, there we go. I'm really hoping I can get the rainbow stars on that one, which it will definitely be possible, because in order to actually get the rainbow stars on that specific level, is to able to actually beat under 25 seconds or less, but anyways. So there we go, folks, that concludes Super Mario Bros. 3, and much like the ones in the first game, is that if you collect all three of those... If you manage to collect all of these stars in that specific NES game specifically, then you get yourselves the golden frame, and if you manage to get all these rainbow stars in those specific stages, once again you get yourselves a rainbow outline on that specific game. So yeah, that's pretty awesome indeed. So even though that's the thing I was meant to be doing from every single portion of this game. So yeah, I guess I might as well end things off here, so join me next time, but let's play NES Remix 2. It's the fact that we're going to be jumping into both Super Mario Bros. 2 and Kirby's Adventure, aka the most splendid platformer games I've ever experienced from. So anyways, see you guys next time for that. Later fellas, I'm gonna go.